Hello everyone and welcome back to another comic book review video. Today I will be reviewing four books. I actually found the issue 45 of Green Arrow. So I'll be talking about this book. That's from last week. From this week we've got Superman number 4, Supergirl number 23, and Catwoman number 4. So before we get to this week's books, let's go and quickly talk about Green Arrow number 45. So if you remember my last video, I mentioned that I didn't find a single copy of Green Arrow on display at my shop. But as it turns out, they did have a lot of copies. I should have asked them because I actually paid a little over the equivalent of cover price for this issue. In fact, they had few copies left, so they kind of spec'd up the price a bit because they weren't going to get any more of them. So yeah, so it cost me about $8, I want to say, equivalent of $8, 168 pesos. So after a quick thinking if I should get the issue, I bought it. And yeah, it was worth it. It's a one shot, so it's a one-off issue tied to Heroes in Crisis. So it's not like if I didn't pick it up, it would have made any difference with the ongoing story. But being a completist, I thought I'll give it a shot, and I have to say what I pay for, even if it's a little over cover price, was worth it actually, because it was a very touching story taking place in during the funeral of Ray Harper. So it was a very touching story. It sort of touched uh, into the old O'Neill Adams run, which specifically the one where we learn Roy is a junkie, uh, and that's a great issue. I actually read it with the reprint on the Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Green Arrow trade, but it was a good story, but it was a good story for the character, but also a bad story for that character, that original issue, because it sort of defined who these two characters were going to be going forward. And while the effects of that story weren't felt at that time, the newer writers sort of picked up on that issue, and so that became their defending characteristics, as Oliver Queen being more of a failure to Roy, and Roy being a very troubled young man. So taking away, it added flaws to that character, but it sort of got those characters kind of stuck with that, even though they were progressing. uh, you always come back to it, and it really makes the defining characteristic for especially for Oliver Queen as not a perfect person. uh, and as we've seen, in during this rebirth run, and even the new 52, that yeah, he's sort of like a very flawed character, but all coming from the original Neil Adams run. So that's kind of bad because it sort of keeps the character not necessarily moving forward, but sort of you have to they right, sort of keep going back to that one specific issue. Uh, but like I said, it's a good, touching story, and hopefully it will move Oliver Queen forward to be better, but the idea that he's super flawed and a screw up all his life, even as a hero, I just don't really like that. So I hope it just moves the character forward. Moving on. So Superman number 4. So this is the end of the first act, I guess, of Brian Michael Bendis' Superman story. As you know, the Earth had been sucked into the Phantom Zone by accident during some um, normal studies done by Star Lab, but something went wrong, and the Earth got sucked into the Phantom Zone. So from around issue 1 through this issue, Superman's been both trying to deal with saving the Earth and trying to get it back to normal space, with the help of the Justice League, but the Justice League themselves and most people are being, sort of being poisoned, slowly being poisoned by the Phantom Zone's atmosphere as it plays with the as it comes in contact with our the small what's left of the Earth's atmosphere as well. So it's a priority for Superman to sort of save people and get the planet out, but he still has to deal with Rogal Zar, who is there and of course, ready to attack. So last issue ended with Rogal Zar coming in contact with Jax-Ur. They team up and they're heading towards Earth to attack it. So Superman goes. It seems like Ray Palmer came up with the solution. It's a risky solution in which he will shrink the Earth and use the Phantom Zone projector to get it out of the Phantom Zone and back to normal space. But with Rogal Zar and his army of Phantom Zone criminals coming towards Earth, Superman has to distract them, which he does. But as he's doing it the smart way. So he knows he can't really punch his way out of this problem because Rogal Zar is perhaps much more powerful, much more stronger than Superman. So he sort of stalls the attack while the Justice League, or specifically Ray and the Flash, who is somewhat recovered, go and put the plan forward. We also sort of get we get to see a side of Superman which most writers avoid, which is the Superman using his head. So as he is fighting Rogal Zar and Jax-Ur, we get this really nice flashback sequence with him and John, and trying to teach him a lesson. He's had some problems. John's had some problems with some people, and he just really wants to punch them, sort of teach him a lesson. And Superman basically just tells him that, going through this long conversation in which he basically says that sometimes, Batman drives him crazy because he does so many morally ambiguous things. He just wants to, tear his head up and end the problem, which shocks John, But the point being is, he knows, Clark knows that it's Batman, so just give him 5 minutes and he'll do something really great many times over. And there will be another moment where he does something really morally ambiguous. But, again, it's just about patience and about trust. And sometimes it's not strength that solves the problem, but, intelligence, being smart at approaching things with smarts, with your head, with understanding. So that's how he approaches Jax-Ur, when he's instead of fighting him, he tells him, "Hey, why are you joining the man who killed Krypton?" Or so he says. If you, in your own weird, wrapped way with your terrorist actions, were trying to save Krypton as well. Jack sort of doesn't really believe Superman, but Superman just goes away, doesn't want to fight, and sort of leaving this little seed in Jack sort that perhaps he might, yes, he might not like Superman, but it's a little seed that perhaps even these enemies could join forces to fight a common enemy if, you know, the seed is planted there. So of course the Earth is saved, but Superman gets stuck in the Phantom Zone. And then with a really funny sequence, going back to what was the last issue with uh, Adam Strange, who calls someone reporting that the planet Earth is missing. So it's a little funny there, but it's clear that Bendis does have like a really well structured story. This is, like I said, it's probably a 3-act story. So this show ends the first act, which is saving the Earth from the Phantom Zone. So it sort of ends like a mini arc. But of course, the story will go on now with Superman having to deal with Zor inside of the Phantom Zone. Next up, Supergirl number 23. So yeah, I have my issues with this current run so far, and I think it's basically because on the one hand it's going very slowly, on the other it just sort of seems that Andreyko is sort of glossing over some stuff that, like I mentioned in the first issue, in issue 21. A lot of things were glossed over sort of to get the whole Supergirl goes to space thing, but so far it's just been moving very slowly. uh, Last issue she was with the Green Lanterns. She goes to Mogo and accesses the Green Lantern archive and comes in contact with the Guardian, uh, who was part of the Circle, and of course she doesn't get any answers. This issue picks up where the last one issue left off. Of course there aren't any answers, but there's like a little progression with this stone, little crystal that seems to contain part of the information she's looking for, the part of the confession of the Guardian, which he left little clues, little fragments of this crystal throughout the galaxy. So that means that Supergirl is going to go on a much bigger quest and just, thinking maybe she would go to the Green Lantern and from the Green Lanterns learn some the truth about Rogol Zar, no, through their archives. Uh, so that's like the hint finally that the story is going to be moving forward, because so far it's just been feeling like a lot of setup. So as a setup, it just been like basically feels like setup, like finally we're moving somewhere. But the rest of the issue is just her fighting the Green Lantern Corps until Margot decides to help her, fixes the ship, gives her some coordinates to where to her next location, and of course we end up with of course Gandalo, right? One of the members of the Circle. We actually learned that the little creature that was in the on Mao working for the Green Lanterns. Actually, I thought he was the same as this little guy, but no, they're cousins. So he works for the Green Lantern, and this guy works for Gandalf, and they seem to both be working definitely towards with him as well, because uh, any access to any Ragolzar file was not accessed, and finally Gandalf decides to send someone to, you know, kill or destroy Supergirl. Uh, so again, very slow paced. You know, 3 issues of setup. It feels like now we're getting somewhere with the crystal and the mission that Supergirl is going to go through, which is a quest, which is very cool, by the way. The art, of course, as always, great by Maguire. Uh, there are some really good character moments for Supergirl, but uh, it's sort of not like there's some good moments and there's some bad moments, because uh, it's sort of and it it sort of takes away some of the stuff, character development that the first 20 issues of this run had brought forth. So now she doesn't really trust the Green Lanterns because of the Guardian being involved. Um, so we get the classic hero fights hero over a misunderstanding, but Supergirl doesn't even bother to talk, which and tell them, which is something you know in like I said, in the first 20 issues, it was established that she was more about compassion and understanding and trust, and then now she is distrustful of the Green Lanterns due to that connection with the Guardians, and one of the Guardians being involved in the destruction of Krypton. She wants to avenge instead of look for justice for Krypton, so very dark stuff. Uh, but it's still fun. It's fun in a very simplistic kind of way. There's not a lot of nuance in the story, not a lot of subplot, nothing beneath it that makes it interesting enough. It's entertaining, and I think a plus for this issue is it does read like a good done in one story. So even if it's not working as great for a much larger story, at least until now, it does work well as a single issue story. It does have a beginning and a middle and an end. It's got an interesting, uh, an interesting cliffhanger to pick up and go into the next issue. Uh, but so far, it just feels like it's a little part of a much larger story, but not moving forward too fast. It's like I was saying with Superman, with the Superman stories, by Brian Michael Bendis. I think there's a lot more going on, a lot more. It's got a much better pace. This is like very slow in pace. But as a done in one story, or at least a single issue, it does a good job. Finally, Catwoman number 4. So this story focuses on Salina's relationship with his sister. So there's a lot of stuff about Catwoman's history, because, like I said, I'm not a big Batman fan, and I hardly pick up the Batman book. So this is a good way to learn more about the character for me. Uh, and the big reveal though is that she is in living in the same town that Salida moved into, but now there's some interest by the Creel family. The 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 bad guy in the Mrs. Creel. the bad guy in this story with Maggie, right? So um, so she's there, talking to her sister, and at the very end, this doctor shows up. Said he was sent by the Creole family, uh, and sort of maybe it's gonna do something to her. Unknown to this fellow here is that Catwoman Selina is there in the room, hidden right here. So uh, whatever interest the Creole Mrs. Creole has with Selina's sister, it's just getting much more interesting. So uh, it's getting kind of late. So yeah, so very like I said, I didn't know much about Catwoman's backstory. Actually, I read some before this issue. I actually read something on the internet on Wikipedia, but now I got like the full story here, uh, and of course, it's all connected to this current storyline. So yeah, I think they were great reads for me. Supergirl, not so much. I mean, I did find myself entertained. The first time I read the book, it felt kind of light. I actually reread Supergirl today just to see if I missed something. Again, very entertaining but very slow paced. So, anyways, next week, two books. I get two books. I don't think I'll try to make videos for the back issue reviews and the next Golden Age Superman. I haven't had time, and it's really been a thing. Every week's been kind of full of comics, so there hasn't really been a good break to do the the other videos. But yeah, definitely I want to get the especially like Golden Age Superman because that's gonna take us a long time uh to cover every issue. So anyways, it's getting kind of long this video, so I'll end this as I always do. Until next time, keep smiling.